Welcome to the Bank Marketing Show, the podcast that engages and informs you for success in today's marketplace. It's the show that will make you a better marketer with trends, tactics, and inspiration from experts and industry leaders. If you're wanting to impact your personal success and position your bank as the best choice in your market, you're in the right place. Now let's dive into today's show with your hosts, Chris and Dan.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Bank Marketing Show. We're glad to have everybody with us today. And Dan, I know we're really excited about a conversation today that I think is important to all bankers universally. Welcome, Dan.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I think every once in a while we do one of these episodes where it's like we're not diving in on the marketing tactics, but diving in on, career growth or leadership or, these other kind of things that are important to hopefully should be important to every bank out there.
Yeah.
But that also impact marketing. And today we're going to talk about culture and how that generally, why it's important, but why it's important to marketing and, how that can impact marketing to, modern marketing today.
Yep. Yeah, and as you and I were planning this out, I know when we say culture, I think we're talking about feel, environment, team, those things, and that's right. We're gonna connect that today with marketing, and everything around that. We're not going into an HR episode because that's not our wheelhouse. But again, as we were discussing this prior to, we know that the culture of a financial institution and all that corporate culture means is absolutely impactful to and influences marketing. And then you take that through to, how it speaks to audiences. And that's really what we want to focus on today.
Yeah, it's like, if your culture is not open to new things, if your leadership, the culture of your leadership team does not sort of quote unquote believe in marketing, you're going to have a hard time doing marketing at the most basic level, right? So, we both worked with a lot of different banks, and a lot of what we do with our clients is educate, right, on why a different marketing tactic should be used and why a logo or a design should be refreshed, why certain language should be used. And the banks that are most successful with it are the ones that are open to new things, right? That doesn't mean you have to accept everything that your marketing agency says verbatim, but it's a willingness to be a little open to recognize that the way people respond to marketing messages today is not the way it was, or it has been kind of prior to the internet years and years ago.
Yep.
And the way people consume media is changing and has changed and is still changing. And marketing tactics and approaches need to address that.
Yeah.
It's an extension, I think, to me, it's an extension of, we say in almost every episode, right? Every bank says trusted and local. Every bank says they've got good customer service. Like, those things may be true, but they are not differentiators. And for the same reason that just shouting that from the rooftops doesn't work anymore, not trying new things, not adapting also won't get you very far.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Dan, I know in the episode today we've got a few key points we're going to cover, and amidst that and after, kind of give some case studies, if you will, some examples, and all of that. But as we dive into that, one comment that I wanted to add and piggyback on yours is that, to me, what we're talking about today is organic. It flows with positive, good corporate culture. It actually makes marketing easier. The messaging and as you mentioned, the differentiation and those types of things, I think, become more obvious.
Yeah.
And we're not having to, come up with something that speaks to what we're about, because with good, solid corporate culture, we know what that is. We know how that feels. We know what's primary and important to us and all that. And it's more than the core values being pasted on the wall, Dan. It's hopefully those are just a reflection of what's actually going on in the hallways.
Yeah. And it kind of gets to the first point we wanted to make on this episode is the marketing that works in 2025 is about people. Right? If you do any social media at your bank, that the posts about people, about your staff, your customers, feel good things going on in the community, that the stuff that's about people is what performs the best. And the same is true on almost any medium, right? A paid ad about people, even written copy that talks about people, talks about stories. As we just got off our like story brand episode, marketing around people works the best right now, right? More than it's starting, I've been studying a lot about, it's even evolving. This is beyond banking, but overall, like marketing is almost evolving beyond brands to people that stand behind the brand, right? And you're seeing a lot of new brands, come out where it's the whole rise of the influencer on social media, but it's kind of going beyond that, where you got new brands coming out that are all based on, look at our, the podcasting world, right? It's all
That's
about, the top podcasts are all people's names.
Yeah.
And, the tying it back to bank culture, right? If your bank culture is open, if your bank culture is kind of happy and the bank cares about its people, that's going to kind of come across, right? There's going to be more willingness to put your people forward. The people are going to kind of be happier when they're
That's a great example
out in the world.
Yes.
That's going to just reflect in the stories that you tell.
It's not keeping the people behind the curtain and then the big bronze sign out front that says established in 1897. Right. That's not 2025 marketing. It's actually the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Let's put the authority statements kind of in the back of the room. They need to exist, but let's put the people forward, because as you're saying, good marketing, it talks to people, it reflects people, it connects with people. Dan, on our episodes, you talk a lot about pain points. Good marketing, it solves pain points for people. And since 1897 doesn't solve a pain point, but hey, we've got, we're geared toward ag or whatever. I'm just pulling that out of the air, but whatever that solves a set of challenges and pain points for a category, a vertical of people that makes sense to them, and they want to connect to that. And if your people reflect that and are the kind of culture that is approachable with that audience, then man, it's gonna make great sense. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, and it's the same, when we talk to banks that, I mentioned the trusted and local before, but it's like, the second or third thing that a bank will usually tell us about themselves after trusted and local is like, well, the community banks with us because of our service, because we have great people, because we're helpful, because you get a real person when you call and pick up. And that's kind of all we're talking about here, is like that, just your marketing should reflect that, not just your brand, not just the since 1887, but like, what are the ways you can show that off, right? And so if you're living that culture internally, that's what should spread out into your marketing in an authentic way, in an energetic way to show that off, because that's people want to. We've said a lot too, in a world where there's thousands of banks, online, offline, and you can choose any. You're going to choose a bank because of its brand, right? The brand is a differentiator, but your messaging and the stuff that sits along with the brand, your people, are also the differentiator. So people are going to choose, people are going to kind of be drawn to the bank initially because of a brand that resonates with them. But the thing that's going to make them come in or make them fill out that online application is a person. You want to know when you walk into the place that it's a friendly, happy place. And so if you can, that will come across in your marketing. But if you can do things intentionally to make it come across, it's going to help. And and it's also a core differentiator from you, a community bank, to any of the larger banks out there.
Right.
They may, the mega banks have ads featuring people and featuring testimonials, but not the person working in the branch.
That's right.
In your small community.
Yeah. Or they've got, whatever, Tom Brady or LeBron James or a faux spokesperson, consistently in the front of their marketing, but they don't actually have, Pam and Steve that work in the bank that are, and I know in a second we're going to hop over to our next topic, who these people need to be that are out front with the bank. But those are, if you want to be a community bank and do what you're talking about, Dan, which is that approachability, and that our people are our strength and all of that, then yeah, show it, live it, put them out there, put your customers out there speaking for you, those types of things.
Right.
And that's how your marketing can do that and reflect that kind of, if your culture is about your people and the community, then be standing in front of, your local landmarks that your bank is funding to,
Yeah, and I mean, instead of putting a headline on your website that says, our people are the difference, put that headline on there, but right under a picture of Pam and a little blurb about Pam's story, and a little blurb about why she loves helping the community, like that type of thing. Show why, but to show the why, and you've got to have happy people, and you've got to have a culture of being outward and going out into the community.
Yeah. Well, Dan, our next big point is about leadership, and everything that we've talked about in this episode thus far, it is really up to the leadership. And some of those may be, it's the leadership out front, and leading that charge, being visible, energetic, all of those kind of things. But you made a good comment to me before we started recording the episode. That's like, yeah, having a CEO that's out front, that's great, but it doesn't have to be that at all. That's not that's one way to do it, but there are other ways to do it too. But the leadership is standing behind this, wanting the culture to be reflected externally.
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to say. That, and that requires, because you can have a great marketing director, or marketing team that is, they're on the Peloton, man. They're trying to crank out all this great marketing and messaging and everything else. And, it's got to start with the agreement and support of the leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I work with banks that don't want to do anything right on social, or, we're worried about bad reviews, like that type of stuff. There's banks in the middle that, are there, but I don't know. I don't want to put, people out because our staff turns over and, we just have to go back and edit our social media feed, like those types of worries. And then the other spectrum is I've worked with banks that have very outgoing leadership. That one bank I worked with had a leader that had more followers on their personal profile than the bank did.
Yep.
And it's probably easier. It's much easier to do that, actually. And it sounds, wow, it's one person, but it's easier because it's a person. People want to follow people and listen to people, not a bank that is perceived as selling you something.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you have to have your CEO out on their own social feed. It has to be authentic and genuine. And this worked for that person because they just naturally were there. If you've got a leader, or really anybody, right, do that. But if you don't force it. You can do a series of vignettes about customer testimonials, employees' history with the bank, celebrate employee anniversaries. You can do that type of thing without making it about one person. But look for, I think the larger point here is your leadership needs to be accepting of your people being out there. And then you need to figure out for your particular culture, what would work the best? Where are your strengths? Is somebody really outgoing and already has a bit of a following, or is prolific on social media already? Lean into that. But if not, there's other ways, there's other ways to do it.
Yeah. I think the point you and I are trying to make is leadership needs to have the willingness. Marketing can figure it out.
Yeah.
Which platform? What's the message? How do we do it? All that. But if the leadership has got the willingness and the openness, maybe the leadership works really hard to have this dynamic culture internally, and all of that. And if the willingness at the next level then is, okay, let's reflect that. Hey, marketing, let's show that to the world. Let's connect with the audiences that we want to connect with. I say to the world, even just to your community or communities, let's reflect that.
Yeah.
And Dan, I think that led really well to one of the other key things that we wanted to put out there today. That is, a brand tends to be true to its culture, to its people. And what that means is what it is internally, just like each of us individually as humans, what we are internally, what we care about, our whatever, our morals, our personality type, our all of those things are going to reflect externally. So a brand tends to do that as well. It's just going to. That's really important to consider and think about as well.
Yeah, right. The brand is one part, but what you do with it, the message. I mean, if you listen to our story brand episode, like the messaging is where you communicate those brand those brand ideals. But if you really read the story brand book, like the brand ideals are not too different from the core values of the bank, or the way that employees are managed and treated in the bank. And it's all like the brand itself may put a little shiny polish on it, but it's all interrelated. And that, and if your good marketing has people in it, and if your people are happier, that's going to come across, right? So if you're proud of your people, if you're proud of your core values and the work that you do in the community, like there's no reason you shouldn't highlight that. There's always going to be backlash. I mean, the flip side of social media and the internet is it makes it really easy to put bad comments on stuff. But everything's got bad comments. So it's about managing it and overcoming it. So the important thing is just to be true, right? Be true to your culture, be true to your people.
Yeah. Sometimes that's what you put out there. If it's positive stuff about this lender that's been with the bank for so many years and is such an engaged part of the community and does all these things, and that's who you're putting out, it's going to be really hard for people to engage negatively with that.
Yeah.
So, Dan, the other big one that I know we wanted to talk about today is, as people have listened to everything that we've said about this, the genuineness is, and the realness of it is key.
Yeah. I mean, I think people are really good at, reading other people. And in an advertisement or a social media post or a video, like you get a split second before somebody decides to keep reading it or keep scrolling. And humans are pretty good judges of character, and it will come across, right? You kind of have a spidey sense of, in that first split second, if somebody's trying to sell you something or if kind of ulterior motive, and that comes across, right? So it's just show that warmth, show your core values, and be a person, be a human, and you're going to get more attention. You're going to get more engagement.
Yeah. Well, and for so many community banks also, Dan, a lot of them have branches in smaller communities. So you can't fake it, because if they know it's not a good place to work and the leadership's not engaged and energetic and community focused and all that other kind of stuff, and then you put this marketing message out there that's like, we're the greatest people to serve you. And then it's like, yeah, no.
Well, show it, right? Like you could have a marketing message, right? That's like, we're going to help you meet your financial goals. But like, that's another trusted local kind of statement that doesn't really mean anything. It's a lot of fluff. And again, it may be true, but a better thing to do would be, one, a couple things. One, a story about how you helped somebody reach their specific financial goal. Or two, a blog article about how you help people reach their goals, or write an article exploring like a goal that you want to help people reach, first time home buyer, or something specific. But show it. Don't have AI generated. Don't use like stock footage. Like show people. And a 15-second video of somebody, of Pam, our made up friend Pam, talking about how she sat down with a first time home buyer and helped him through it, is going to get way more engagement than just saying, we want to be your first time home partner.
Yeah.
If it's truly just Pam, I think the point, right, is if it's truly just Pam telling this story, it's going to feel very genuine. It's going to feel a lot more. It's going to be a lot more engaging than the loan officer just sort of saying, "We'll solve all of your problems for you," because that's going to feel like a sales thing.
Well, and good marketing, Dan, whether it is the internal marketing director or team or an agency like us that is given that story and that opportunity, then, as you said earlier, in 2025 marketing terms, then marketing's job then becomes to march that out and tell that story rather than just say that dry tagline.
Yeah.
It is to portray that story. And we all know normally that's multi-platform. That's not one social post. That is social. Even your SEO reflects it. Your web reflects it. Your, just everything does. And that's consistent in that genuine, reflection of what your intentions are, what the culture is, all of those things. So Well, Dan, you and I were talking about this kind of over coffee, so to speak, as we were preparing. And boy, we both threw out a couple of we can call them case studies, but examples of ours. What was one that came to mind for you that's kind of at one end of the spectrum?
Yeah, I think I is the one the good end of the spectrum is the bank I kind of touched on earlier, where the CEO just had a massive following of his own, and the numbers, the bank had a few thousand followers, but the CEO had 10, 13,000, and was on, had slightly different topic, content on LinkedIn versus Facebook, and was starting to get into TikTok, which to get onto TikTok, you've got to be a real person.
Yeah.
And if you want to go anywhere. So, but this CEO just had that natural personality and was just, naturally an outgoing, person. And I think went a long way to, they were trying to grow the bank's followers, followers of the bank's profile on LinkedIn and on Facebook, but it was definitely an uphill battle to do that versus just if you're an individual person and you're posting regularly, you're going to get a couple things that go far and help to grow your audience.
Yeah.
So, that bank's kind of an extreme example of they just happen to have a prolific CEO who's just a natural fit for that, but they exploited that and went after it, and it helped them. So
absolutely.
So it's kind of, an inspirational position, right? You may not have that type of person at your bank, but if there are things you can do that model after it, right? Be thinking about what resources you have in your bank that are like that, to get people out there. It's much easier to get followers on a human being's profile than on a business profile.
Yeah. That's an awesome example. And it's not one that everybody can do and implement, but the ones that are out there that can do that with their leadership, it can be exponentially beneficial.
Yeah, right. Even if it's your VP of HR or
right.
It doesn't have to be the CEO, but somebody at the bank that's
charismatic,
natural fit for it. Yeah,
energetic. Yeah, all of those. Yeah,
that's got Riz, as my kids would say.
There you go. I like that. Yeah. Yeah, and an example of one of our clients that's a rather large community bank that's a multi-state, multi-market, all of that. Well, one of the ongoing campaign sets that we drop a lot in between, but they do little quick video clips and it's really the marketing director going around with her phone, and it's organic, but it's for social, so it's supposed to be. And she's asking questions. And one time it's the CEO, and then it's the HR director, and then it's a lender, and then it's a this. And, sometimes it's funny things about tidbits about the history of money or something like that, or when the first pennies were made or something goofy like that. But then sometimes it's about a community happening or something. And sometimes it's actually about, hey, I heard from so-and-so down the hall that you helped a young couple get their first house today. And them going, yeah. And that's really what it's all about. That's really what we're here for. And they catch on it, and then, then we kind of pretty it up and brand it and put it on their social. And wow, boy, that's dynamic. But it's what you said. It's all about those people, and it's kind of covering multiple people to put out front.
Well, and the extra kind of people magic that happens when you do that is, say one of those interviews is our imaginary friend Pam. Pam should repost that on her own personal profile.
There you go.
Her own LinkedIn page.
Yeah.
And her followers see it that, are not following the bank, and it goes further that way. So you're not only creating this series of videos, but you're tagging other people and they're commenting and liking, and you're getting more, the engagement spider webs from there.
Yeah.
If you don't have that one prolific leader or big profile, that's another way you can replicate the engagement. Because really followers are less important than they used to be, right? It's organic reach on Facebook is, it's not gone, but it's like, if you look at your Facebook feed, it's probably 10% like your actual Facebook friends these days. It's ads, it's AI suggestions and things like that. And all the platforms are kind of going that way, where it's going to be less about your followers and more about the engagement that the post gets.
Right. What are they pausing and listening to?
Right.
Before they move on.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Because that ultimately, that's why you want to gain followers, is to get more people watching your content. So you can kind of, I think we'll see in the next few years, like that follower is going to come out of the equation a bit. And I mean, even on TikTok, like followers don't matter as much. Like if you're making good posts, they get reach. So it's more about creating a series of posts that gets good reach. So you don't necessarily, it helps if you have that prolific leader, but you don't need it.
Yeah. Well, and I like this. You and I have each given some, a couple of good real world examples, from some of our bank clients. And I know at the other end of the spectrum, we won't spend time on this, but we could give examples on the other end of the spectrum also. And I was talking to you, Dan, about, one of mine that I went and visited and man, it was not a good upbeat culture. Kind of walked in and it was physically dingy. The staff didn't really engage with each other. I mean, you can just feel it. You can literally feel that low energy, and all of that. But they had a pretty good marketing person who wanted to put out this really dynamic messaging going, yeah, that's
not going to work. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just not going to work. And it's going to come across as, you and I talked about it earlier. I mean, people smell fake, and that's not going to do it. So it's finding the things that exist in your culture. And again, we're not getting into the HR discussion here, and how are ways that you can improve that culture and really speak out the things that are positive about your corporate culture and those and the people on your team and those types of things. So
yeah.
Man, it's important stuff. What we talked about today, as we said on the front end, Dan, speaks to every single company out there, every financial institution out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've seen the broad range of cultures and the impact it can have. And I think even if your culture is on the end of the spectrum of the last bank you just talked about, like I think at the end of the day, it's you as a marketing leader may not have a place to impact the culture as much as like a CEO would. If you're the CEO, like obviously you do, but I think no matter where you're starting from, it's a matter of adapting the marketing to suit it, right? So if your people are very happy, it makes it easy. If it's more the latter case, I think there's probably still pockets of pockets of sunshine you can find to put out in your marketing. And it's kind of like anything else. It's like exploiting that and getting it out there. But it is important. The most important thing that we've said today is to just be genuine and be true. Yeah. And the rest will kind of follow.
There you go. Well, so Dan, speaking of that, I wanted to throw this offer in at the end. Is you and I just talked about just a couple of quick examples of doing this right. And I know a big part of the underlying purpose of you and I doing this podcast is to raise the tide, in this industry and genuinely help people. So, in that, I want to invite people to reach out to us through our website, through bankmarketingshow.com. You can reach out to Dan or me, or we've got a contact form on there. If you want to go, hey, help me brainstorm some more about this. We're really working on our culture, or we've got a great culture and I don't really know how to march that out in our marketing. And you want to hear some more stories about, done right. Yeah, you guys as our listeners, we want to invite you to connect with us because, Dan, between you and I and all the banks that we work with, we've got pockets full of best practice ideas, and we'd love to share those with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and true to ourselves, like, we don't do the hard sell. Where if we can help you over email, we'll help you over email. And
there you go. Yep.
Share what we know, like we do here. So
yep. Or have a good chat and then let you go and run with it. So That's right. Very good. Well, folks, connect with us that way. If you like this episode, please share it and help us continue to grow the podcast. I mean, it's hard to believe, Dan, that we're multiple years into this now and continue to get, rising subscribers and interest and all of that. So it's a really cool thing happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good to have another one with you, Dan. I'll look forward to the next one.
Yeah. Till next time.
All right.
Thanks for joining us. To go deeper or get access to some of the valuable nuggets from today's show, go to bankmarketingshow.com. There you'll find episodes, links to resources, and much more. Be sure to subscribe wherever you find your podcasts. And join us next time.